The concept of shepherd's fire is really very personal to me. I was on a hunting trip, one of many. I used to do a lot of big game hunting, and one of the trips was a very dangerous trip. I'd been out for a couple of days bow hunting in the Rocky Mountains in Montana, right on the border of Yellowstone National Park, and I'd killed an elk with my bow and quartered the elk and stayed with it there overnight with meat hanging in the tree to try to keep any bears from coming and getting it. And then the next morning woke up, and my friend had gone to get the pickup to come as close as he could to where the meat was so that we could pack it out. And we did, and we packed it out and took it into Livingston, Montana for processing. And then we came back that evening and we parked the truck, walked about a mile and a half to the base of the mountain where our camp was. And we were supposed to have our gear there. The other two guys that were with us were supposed to leave our gear there, but it wasn't there. And so we decided, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to go back to the truck and just spend the night in the truck? Or are we going to hike up the mountain and try to get to camp? Well, it's about a 3.5, 4 hour hike to get up there, and it was already dark, and it was starting to rain, and we thought, let's just go ahead and do it. So we started up the mountain. The long story short, as we started up the mountain, it got colder and colder. The rain turned to snow. We weren't dressed appropriately, and we started struggling severely with hypothermia. Once we got to the top of the mountain, it was foggy, and we were exhausted, and we couldn't hardly see more than maybe 6 to 8 feet in front of us. And fortunately, by God's grace, I happened to stumble onto a large pile of rocks that shepherds had put there many years before to mark their territory. And I knew that there was an old piece of barbed wire fence that ran from that pile of rocks to our camp, which would have been maybe 100 yards away. So I got down on my hands and knees with my buddy, and there was about maybe 3 inches of snow on the ground, and we finally found that little piece of wire. And we followed that wire on our hands and knees until all of a sudden, in the distance, we could see the glowing of a fire. And that fire literally saved our life. That was the fire that we were able to come to get warmed up and immediately get all of our wet and partially frozen clothes off and get into a sleeping bag and to survive. And so the idea of a shepherd's fire is very powerful to me. But beyond that, every man knows that when you get around a fire, a campfire, especially when you're up in the mountains, there's something about the romance of the fire and just the power of a fire that causes men to open up and to begin to talk about the real issues of life. And that's what this is all about with Shepherd's Fire. As a shepherd, that is my desire. Certainly I have fire in my bones with respect to the gospel, but to be able to sit around the fire with other people, especially men, and to be able to really address the real issues of life and bring our lives before God and before His Word and allow Him to minister to our souls, that is so powerful. And that's what we want to do as we come together every week and address the issues of life.